welcome to the Pig and Whistle Tales from Azeroth. As always, here at the Pig and Whistle Inn in Stormwind, I go for a variety of subjects with regards to World of Warcraft. So grab a bottle or a pint, sit back and enjoy. Today we're going to be going over pugging versus playing with your friends, pretty much. And this is something that I thought of as they recently introduced cross-faction play, 9.2.5, and how much it's made it more accessible to play with your friends on the race and the class or the race and class combination that they want and stuff like that. But obviously we have the weekly stuff, so let's get straight into that. The world bosses for this week are Valinor, Morgeth and Antros. These are the three world bosses, Bastion, Mor and Zereth Mortis, or where they're all located. Make sure you hop on over there, get them kills, get your anima, get your conduits, gear, whatever you need. But yeah, they are the three world bosses. I can't speak today, it's the heat. It's like, when I record this, it's like middle of the night. And yeah, the heat is just still like, it's sticky heat, is the best way to describe it. But let's carry on. The bonus event for this week is Cataclysm Time Walking, so make sure that you spend them badges on potential mounts, gear, reputation that you might want from the Cataclysm expansion. The brawl for this week is Packed House. This is actually one of my favourite. It's 15 versus 15, I believe. Yeah, it's 15. And you're all packed into a arena. The small arenas that are used for 2v2 and 3v3. And it's first to wipe the other team out of the arena, pretty much. So, the team deathmatch. And it's really great fun. Melees don't necessarily have as much fun in the arena as, say, ranged. But, you know, they can still get in there, go a bit crazy. A paladin can bubble, just press loads of stuff. Death Knight can go in there with A-bomb limb. It can get a bit crazy and it's quite fun to do so. The mythic fixes for this week are Fortified. So the mobs in the dungeon are a bit more tankier and they deal more damage. Inspiring. There will be one mob within the group that makes the rest of the mobs immune to interrupt and CC effects. So either CC that mob out of the pool or kill it quickly so that you can CC the other mobs and they don't do too much damage to you. Grievous is our final or our third mythic affix this week. So make sure you help your healers out, honestly. This is when you drop below 90%, you'll take a bleed effect damage and this will only be gone when you are topped above 90%. So help out your healers. Just, you know, put yourself up from 85 to 100%. It's not going to be a big deal. It's not going to kill you. And we have Encrypted, which is this seasonal affix for Season 3. Yes, we are in Season 3. And this is going to be a really good one. Starfall is the spell that I want to go over its history. Now, Starfall as a spell has been really wonky sometimes. So it was added in patch 3.0 back in 2008, Wrath of the Lich King. And the first patch that it got was a few months later. It instead of cancelling shape-shifting, it now cancels on shape-shifting into animal form. Celestial focus, the balance, no longer includes Starfall, so this reduces the pushback, suffering damage whilst casting, stuff like that, because obviously Starfall is a buff that you just apply to yourself. It isn't something that is channeled or casted, so it makes sense for it not to be in the talent. But yeah, that's a bit weird that it cancelled your shape-shifting whenever you had it on you. So if you were trying to go into bear form, you would obviously not be allowed to go into bear form. It would kick you out of bear form, which is a bit stupid. So they just reversed it. It will now just cancel Starfall instead, which makes sense. The next patch is 3.1, which was a few months later, and its cooldown was reduced to 90 seconds. I'm pretty sure that's down from 2 minutes or 3 minutes, something like that. And then a year later, the damage done by the spell has been significantly increased, which is really good. So in Wrath of the Lich King, Starfall was a hilarious ability. And basically, it put a invisible circle around you for around 30 yards, and it would hit absolutely every single mob within this radius. It didn't matter if you were in combat with it or not, it would hit these targets. And this caused some absolute controversies, because if you're in a raid group and you press Starfall accidentally in the middle of a massive room where you're trying to clear around the outside, you would pull that entire room. No question about it. All of their mobs would be charging at you, and you would be hoping that your tanks can pick it up. It was a great ability, and that's probably the main reason that I'm going to go Boomkin in Wrath of the Lich King Classic when it comes out. So, that'll be good fun. So the next update that it had came again a year later in Cataclysm. Starfall will now hit any target in range which is in combat or not at full health, excluding the exposed head of Magmor, which was causing issues with Starfall. So, like I said, it was hitting absolutely everything within this radius, but at least they changed it to stuff that, wasn't at full HP or is in combat at the very least. And then we had several months later another hotfix. Starfall is no longer hitting targets that are within 40 yards if they are not in combat with the druid or his/her party /raid members. It is targeting all hostile characters in combat with the druid's party/raid members, is not hitting stealth characters, is not breaking crowd control effects, and is not targeting nearby critters. You can just see how stupid this ability was. It hit characters in stealth, it broke crowd control like polymorphs and stuff, and it hit critters that are level 1 and that, you don't really necessarily pay any attention to. It was doing all of these, and it took, it took 2 years for that change to come in, more than 2 years for that change to come in. And this is why I think Starfall in Wrath of the Lich King is going to be hilariously wonky, and people aren't going to realise that, it's going to cause some problems. It'll be great fun, but ultimately it's very good for leveling and AoE mobbing as well, because you can gather it all up and then AoE it down. So another hotfix came a month later. Starfall should no longer strike targets which the druid is not in combat with. This is just a small hotfix from, obviously, the previous one. Now, in Mists of Pandaria, it got redesigned. It will no longer strike targets that are affected by crowd control effects, obviously, so there was a small bug with this. They didn't necessarily get it perfect at the time. And then, several months later, it now deals 10% more damage. Mists of Pandaria wasn't necessarily the best expansion for it, and it is when they tweaked a lot of things with talents and stuff like that, so it's arguable, or it's easy to see why spells didn't necessarily get as much love in Mists of Pandaria as other expansions. Start of Warlords of Draenor, a month or a year later, it now shares charges with Star Surge and has a cooldown of its own. It also now hits all nearby enemies, up to 2 nearby enemies, and no longer cancels when mounting. However, you can no longer hit stealthed or invisible targets. So I'm pretty sure in Warlords of Draenor they had a charge system with Star Surge and Starfall, and it was on constant recharge. I didn't play Boomkin back then, so I don't necessarily know, but it would be nice to, if people do know, it's obviously something that they can relate to. But the cooldown it having, I think, was put into a talent, which is Stellar Drift, as it invokes a cooldown, like a 12-second cooldown now, but increases the damage of it by like 50%. So I think that kind of stayed, but just in a talent form. The next, it had 4 hot fixes up next. So Starfall's damage has been increased by 75%, which is absolutely ludicrous. Starfall's damage now deals 33% less damage in PvP combat, and Starfall's effect is now only suppressed when shapeshifting into non-Moonkin form. Shifting back into the appropriate form will allow the effect to resume. This is the way that we know it currently in the game. And the final hotfix that they got before the first major patch. It no longer targets players that are capturing a PvP point in Arathi Basin, Battle for Gilneas, and Eye of the Storm, because I guess you could just pop this and no one will be able to cap the flag, so you'd actually have to kill the boomkin that's just annoying everyone, which is quite fun. So in patch 6.1, which was a couple days, actually like a couple weeks after the final for hotfix, Starfall and Sunfall now only hit targets affected with Moonfire and Sunfire by default. Damage has been decreased by 16.6%. Sunfall, for those wondering, you summon a flurry of solar bolts from the sky which strike targets affected by a Moonfire or Sunfire within 40 yards and deal a certain amount of nature damage. This is what turned into shooting stars, I believe. Or something along them lines. They sort of implemented it into the passive, which is shooting stars, where it drops a astral star on the target if they are affected by a Moonfire or Sunfire, and it generates astral power. A few months later, 9.2, it just got a small damage increase, or decrease, and now deals 4% less damage. A few months later, the damage has been increased by 6%. So, it's going up and down, it's fluctuating a bit. In Legion, finally, it was redesigned. This was a year later. It's had 2 redesigns, that's insane. Now deals damage in a targeted area and applies a debuff that increases the damage taken by your Moonfire and Sunfire. A few hotfixes came its way. Starfire no longer stops dealing damage when striking a target that is immune to AoE. Starfire or Starfall damage is increased by 10%, and Starfall now deals 25% less damage to players. And then in the final patch of Legion, in the mid patch of Legion, 7.2, duration and tick rate is no longer affected by haste. And then finally, there was nothing in BFA for it. In 9.0 for Shadowlands, it's been redesigned again, so it got a 3rd redesign. It now affects targets in an area around the player. Casting Starfall during this effect no longer stacks, and instead it will refresh its duration. That's a shame that you couldn't stack Starfall anymore. That's a real shame. Starfall, again, has been one of the wonkier abilities, especially when it was implemented back in Wrath of the Lich King, where it would just AoE absolutely everything, regardless if it was in combat or not. You could pull... I remember walking into Icecrown Citadel, accidentally pressing Starfall in one of the very first starting rooms, and in this starting room there was about 5 different packs. You walk through the middle of the room, you've got 2 packs on your left, 2 packs on your right, and then a middle pack. And these packs on the left and right, you didn't necessarily deal with, but you just go straight through the middle, and that's pretty much it. But yeah, you would attack this middle pack, and if a druid pops Starfall, which I did, you would pull the left and right pack if you were slap bang in the middle, and that was very fun. I'm not going to lie, that was very fun to just AoE. It's fun to have a boomkin AoE, and it is, in my regard, one of the better AoEs because it's just fun to use. It's just fun to see the stars like raining down, and it's not something that you have to place in a certain area, and because of how wonky it can be, you can do really cool things with it. You can just do a massive AoE pull. You get your boomkin to Starfall everything within a radius, and then your mage cleans it all up by AoEing and stuff like that. You can do absolutely crazy things with Starfall, and I cannot wait for Wrath of the Lich King to come about so that I can use this wonky Starfall in the future. But let's get on to the meat and bones of the podcast this week. Pugging and playing with your friends. So, what are the advantages of pugging, really? It's the only one that I could really think of is to find new people to play with. Now, again, this is going to be very tough, as the disadvantages certainly outweigh the advantages of pugging. So, you can find new people for sure, but the thing is you have to trudge through all of the shit that's there, and that's being nice about it. So the disadvantages from pugging are that it is very stressful. It can be toxic. You have levers not up to the sort of level that you need them to be. So you can go for about 100 people, and one of them will be someone that you actually want to play with in the future and group with in the future and stuff like that. But the stress that you get from pugging, especially high-end mythics, high-rated PvP, whether it be arena or battlegrounds, a lot of people... I mean, I did a few pugs today on my druid, my boomkin, and I did some arenas 3v3. I went through about 2 or 3 groups that weren't necessarily working out. We had one that was kind of, 50-50, you win some, you lose some. But the monk in this group, I'm not going to name any names, obviously, from the very first game, he was just going off on our healer, saying, oh my god, purge, purge, purge. It was a priest healer. Now, he was purging. I will say that, he was purging. He was purging when he could. Obviously, against melee cleaves, it's very tough. You got to keep on top of things. There were a couple times when I dropped below 10%, and he's mind-controlled this monk, and he's actually saying, purge me, and I'm still sat there at 10%, and it's like, well, I need a heal, and he's in CC. He's currently sat in like a hammer of justice. He can't purge you when he's CC'd. It's one of them things you just get so worked up, like the toxicity that some people can bring. Like, it was to the point where he would be standing in the middle of the arena, not CC'd, not having anything, not rooted, not anything, and he would be typing and flaming the healer mid-arena, and it's just like, dude, at this point you're the one throwing the game because you're just stood there doing absolutely nothing, and it's ludicrous. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And I think I played with this monk before, like a few months back. I think he added me, and I definitely took him off my friends list because I knew how toxic he was. But the name rung a bell. It was the same class, and it was the same guy. I'm pretty sure of it now. But it's insanely stressful, and the amount of people that you find in pugging and looking for group can be extremely toxic and demoralizing. But there is that 1 in 100, in 1,000 that you will think, oh my god, I actually enjoyed your company, and I think that I would like to, play the game with you again. That's the thing. But it's very tough to find that person. Again, I played a boomkin and I pushed gladiator last season. I had a shaman that I played with, and we were looking for a demon hunter to complete the sort of composition that we wanted. We went through so many demon hunters, one of them being absolutely atrocious. He would just press W, not do anything, not help out the team. I would need darkness, which is a defensive cooldown from a demon hunter, as it was his turn to press as it is, or as it kind of is in an arena. It's like, okay, you press to help me, I need help, can you peel for me, stuff like that. And he would just be off in the other guy's spawn, not a care in the world. He did good damage, but like, so do all demon hunters. I needed help in that instance to prolong the game, and we can win the game off of prolonging it. But he was just awful. But we found a demon hunter that was really good. He played the way that we enjoyed, and we sort of grew as a team, and I added him, and we've still played to this day. Admittedly, we've not played for a month and a half, but that's because I've taken a small break from World of Warcraft in terms of the PvP side from my druid, and I'm not really too bothered about pushing at all. I just do arenas for fun. But yeah, he's always on my friends list, and I know that I've got a good reputation with him, and I know that I enjoy the company with him. He's not necessarily toxic, he's not necessarily super chill, he's very serious in the matter, but not to the point where it gets in the way of us just having a fun time in an arena if we want to push some rating. So, you do have to go through so much shit in order to find the good in looking for group and pugging, but sometimes it's worth it, and sometimes it can be very chilled, depending on, the 1 in 15 groups, 20 groups, 50 groups, 100 groups. You will find a group that is very chilled, relaxed, laid back, and you just have a good time. You just all piss about, nothing too serious. It is just a game at the end of the day, and people need to realise this. Again, you can be as competitive as you want, but if you start slating other people, human beings, by the way, on the other side of their keyboard, it's not fun. Like, if you did that to just someone out in the street, you'd feel awful. But because you're behind a keyboard, you don't necessarily feel that impact because you don't see how it affects them. Now, the priest that I was with today, I just said, don't worry about him. He seemed like very toxic, clearly not having a good day or something, and he was fine with it. And, you know, it takes quite a lot of resolve, which is something to wade through all of that shit to find the good. I'm not really, doing Pugging any justice, am I? You get the 1 in a million, well, 1 in 100, I'd say. But honestly, playing with your friends can be a lot more relaxing. It's relaxing, funnier. You can try different things without having to rage. So you can try double destruction warlock in an arena and just to piss about. You can try doing, 4-5 druid Mythic Plus runs, like teams, like all Convoke or something, or one of each, Covenant. You can do all Death Knights with A-Bomb Limb, just do a massive pull and just AoE absolutely everything. You can do a lot of stuff without having to worry about if someone's raging if you wipe from these experiments or something like that. And this can go both ways. So you can be having a fun time, but ultimately, if you still are a competitive person, this is speaking from my personal experience, if people aren't at the same sort of level in terms of how serious they're taking it, serious but fun at the same time, like obviously, if you're pissing about and actually just hard throwing the Mythic Plus or the arena, then it can get a bit annoying. But if you're still trying, you're still having fun with it, then that's fair enough. But if it can get very annoying if people are just jumping off the edge for no reason, stuff like that. If it costs you the Mythic Plus time or it costs you the arena, then fair enough. If they're trying stuff, by all means, let them try stuff. It doesn't matter. But again, jumping off the edge, who cares? It's like, oh, who cares? It's just a Mythic Plus run. That's the sort of thing that will grind me down. And it's like, well, I kind of care a bit. I'm here to have fun, but I do still care about wanting to complete the dungeon or do it within time. So it is kind of a double-edged sword, playing with your friends if they aren't necessarily as that little bit serious along with you, if that makes sense. So it is a double-edged sword. What the hell? My Discord just went crazy for some reason. Yeah, it is a double-edged sword, and I don't... Again, playing with your friends is so much better, mainly because you have played it with them, you've been friends for however many years, 5, 10, 15, you've known them since preschool or something, and yeah, you know how they interact with games, you've played games with them before, you know their mentality, you know how they play within games. That makes it a lot better of an experience, a lot more fulfilling, because you understand that the tank is very aggressive and will do very big pulls. You can understand that the healer is very much a DPS healer, so you need to be a bit more safer in terms of where you're positioned, how you're doing damage. Make sure you don't over aggro if you're playing like TBC or something like that. But Pugging can have that hidden gem sometimes. You might find that one person that you really connect with in a group and you're like, yeah, I want to do some more mythics with you or more arenas. And you might not have that in your group of friends yet. It might be the missing a piece of the puzzle, as it were. But Pugging, again, is just you're going through so much shit to find that hidden gem, whereas playing with friends is you're already through the shit. You don't want to rock the boat, as it were. It's a very comfortable situation and you know where you stand. So it's been made a lot easier to play with your friends through cross-faction, because a lot of friend groups or people who have wanted to play together haven't been able to, or haven't been able to as much due to the fact that cross-faction was not enabled. Some person might really want to play a Blood Elf Paladin, and one person might really want to play a Night Elf Druid, and one of you would have to settle for making either like a Tauren Druid or a Human Paladin, a Dwarf Paladin, etc. But it really isn't fulfilling what they want in the game. It isn't really fulfilling that fantasy role of playing a elf or, I just realised that I named both of them elves, a blood elf and a night elf, or say like a dwarf. It doesn't really fulfill that role. And that's the whole point of the game. You want to be experiencing the game the way that you want to, but you also want to be experiencing it with your mates and your friends. And now that cross-faction is open, you are allowed to do that. And I think that would open up a lot more possibility, especially the possibility for finding people in looking for group, because I think a lot of people got very comfortable with how their friend group is and didn't necessarily try and express or reach out to, say, other people of the other faction. You have that opportunity now to experience another half of the player base, which you didn't before. So you might find more gems like on the other side of the faction that you might not have found on your side, or you might see the bad on your side or your faction and not the good, and it's vice versa on the other faction side. Like, I've done looking for group the past couple of weeks since cross faction's been back in game, and the people that I find that are most chill are the Horde, mainly because there's no alliance in looking for group. But yeah, I found a lot of chilled healers in looking for group when doing arenas, more so than what I found in the alliance side when cross faction wasn't on. So it seems to me like it can only get better, and there's a lot more people experiencing or trying to find more people to play with since cross faction has opened up, which is really good. And this will hopefully in turn lead to a better pugging experience for everyone involved. But that is it for this week. Thank you all very much for listening. I wasn't sure if I was going to put this one with a different podcast idea. I vaguely remember doing something like types of people in the in groups or something, in WoW groups, like dungeon groups and stuff like that. But I was thinking of maybe pairing these together, but I'm kind of glad that I didn't, as I got to talk about Starfall quite a bit. I'm not going to lie. So thank you all very much for listening, as always. Go and check out all of the social medias. Go check out the YouTube as well. I've been doing a World of Warcraft Classic series on there at the moment. It's just something that people kind of forget about, which is the very simple but quite calming leveling experience from like the lower levels. Once you hit max level, you don't necessarily look back on that, and a lot of people miss out on it because, well, when Wrath Classic comes out, you'll probably be looking to level, your level 70 to level 80 instead of a level 1 to 80 instead, or a Death Knight, which is a level 55 to 80. But yeah, go check it out. It's been great fun. I've got loads of stuff happening. And yeah, thank you all very much for listening once again. And go with Valor, friend. Goodbye all.